At the end of your life, what will be your legacy? What will you leave behind for future generations? For the world, join the World Messenger, Izabela Lundberg, each week as she brings you a new distinguished guest from the business, sports, or entertainment world to share their success, their struggles, and their lessons. They will share their insights into current hot topics that affect everyone. Izabela facilitates an intimate, vulnerable environment to find the true value of humanity and real leadership. Are you ready for your legacy? The legacy that matters?
Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Izabela Lundberg here, the World Messenger, and I am bringing you to another epic legacy leader show. I have a very special guest here today that is very dear to my heart. She is two-time Olympian national championship basketball coach. She's an award-winning speaker and author. She is just through and through most amazing, fascinating woman with a great story. Talk about overcoming adversity and always being on the winning side. And guess what, guys? Her name is Sherry Winn. Without further ado, let's hear from Sherry. Sherry, welcome. How are you?
Hey, I'm awesome. I mean, even though it's minus 18 outside today in Montana, it's still beautiful, right? Every day presents an opportunity for you to see beauty. And what I see out my side, I'm looking right out my window, so I've got this incredible view of the mountains, of a creek, and right now what I see is white, like white sky, white trees, white snow, but it's purity. And so you get the chance to see this incredible purity covering the land right now. So I think that when you look outside every day, what you see and brings you great joy, that's what I look for every single day.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And yes, she is coming from Montana. I mean, she's joining us from Montana, and it is such a beautiful state and very peaceful, very picturesque all year round, actually, right? And specifically right now during the winter when it's so cold, I'm sure it's still some activities that you do. Are you sledding? Are you hiking? Are you snowshoeing? How do you spend winter months over there?
Well, this week I'm hibernating. That's what I'm doing this week.
I do not blame you. I do not blame you.
But there's other days. I have this incredible, right outside my house. So I live up on top of a hill, and I have the view of the Beartooth Mountains. But there's a hill, like literally, you can go down with your old sled. You know how when you're a kid and you could jump on a sled, you could ride down. So I'm still a kid. I'm still at 59, being a kid, sliding down the hill, crashing, obviously many times, rolling over the snow. But it's that ability to reach your inner child and to stay kind of young, even as you age. And so I'm so fortunate to live where I do.
That is beautiful. And I love what you mentioned, how important it is to keep that spirit of the child and keep us going, because we should be looking at the world through eyes of that innocence of a young child and that playfulness and that creativity, which all of that is a great attribute to your tremendous work that you keep doing in every decade of your life. So before we go and pick what are you currently up to, do you mind sharing, first of all, a little bit about your upbringing before you obviously moved to Montana, and how did you get, first of all, in professional sport? And then what sport did you play?
If somebody would have told me that you're more likely to get struck by lightning twice before being an Olympian, like I would have never dreamed about being an Olympian. But isn't it awesome that you can attack a dream without knowing what it takes? And so at the very young age of 7, I actually pronounced, I said, I'm going to be an Olympian. I'm like, I'm going to be an Olympian. And of course, you know how your parents are like, that's so cute, honey. Oh, thank you. But I meant it. Like I really meant it. And so even at the age of 7, I started training. Like I was jumping jacks, and push-ups and all this stuff because I really believed I was going to be an Olympian. And all through my high school career, I had this belief. I just knew. I mean, when you know something and you live as if it's going to occur, like you step into that current. And really, that's what I did. I mean, all through my high school career, I just believed this was going to happen. And fortunately for me, it did. I mean, I was so lucky that I stepped into something. Now, handball is a sport that I played. In the United States, it's called team handball. But over in Europe, as you know, it's just called handball, which is like soccer using the hands or water polo on land. Phenomenal sports, very fast paced, very aggressive. There's a lot of hitting of opponents, like you can't punch them, but there's a lot of like body contact, high scoring game, phenomenal game. And I was fortunate enough to play in 1984 and 1988 on the USA team.
Wow. So you started so early, had a vision, you knew a destination where you're going, and that unfolded for you in high school. And as a result, brought you for 2 Olympics to play in Olympic Games. Wow. So do you mind sharing with the audience that obviously we see amazing every 4 years, winter, and every 4 years, Summer Olympics. We're super excited to root for different people, but many people have no idea how much dedication, hard work needs to be done in order to prepare mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically. So do you mind sharing all of those elements, please? And what it was for you, that experience for that first Olympic? When did you find out? And what did you have to do to prep and be selected?
Well, we moved in together. So the women's team, national team, moved in together in 1981. Now you got to remember, this is back when we were amateurs. So we all lived, 13 of us, all lived in one house. And every single room in the house was a bedroom except for the kitchen. And we had one little space, one little living room space that we could congregate in. But people actually had their dresser drawers in the garage because there wasn't enough room. And you could take, like, when you showered, you couldn't use all the hot water if people get mad at you. So literally you turn the water, and then you turn it off and you shower up, you lather up and you turn it back on and turn it off. And so you didn't get to run like a shower we know today. And we trained twice a day. So literally, even back then, we were working full-time jobs. I was working at Hallmark card stores, yes, making $3.35 an hour. I still remember that. Woohoo! And then we'd come home and work out. So go lift weights or run. And then later that evening, like at 8 o'clock at night, we would train from 8 to 10 or 9 to 11 at night to get all of our workouts in. And that lasted for about a year and a half. And then we moved to Lake Placid. We were the first team that moved into the Lake Placid Training Center. And even though we're a summer sport, and this is for winter sports, we moved in. And again, we trained twice a day. So we trained twice a day from 1981 all the way up into the 1984 Olympic Games. And so your life was made of, getting up to eat, getting to the training room so they could patch you together, going to train, going back to ice down, resting, and then starting the whole program over again. And I wouldn't change any of that. It was so, I was living the dream. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I love playing more than anything else in the world. So I was just so fortunate to do that. And then we just kind of repeat the same thing, and for 1988. But that time we lived in Colorado Springs, and we trained twice a day, year round. And then for the 1988 Olympic Games. So it was, you had to give up a lot. You had to give up a lot, and you didn't make it. We made no money. I was broke. At the end of that.
Wow. And that is interesting too, because being here in Colorado and being a European transplant who always was so fascinated by Olympics, and seeing Olympic Committee and down in Colorado Springs and just visiting some of the facilities and whatnot, I can just picture that so vividly now. So do you mind sharing when did you guys knew that you are selected, that is the team that's going to go, and how was that emotionally, like wearing the jerseys, putting your representing the country, the biggest nation, and just having the sense of what was going on emotionally for you?
Well, we actually, in 1984, I can remember this so vividly, and this is one of the places where I knew that I could create better leadership. And so in 1984, what they did is we had a group of people that trained on the national team. So you weren't on the Olympic team until just a couple of months before the Olympics, and so they had a tryout for all the people who've been training. And they have to cut that number down to 15 on the team. And I can remember the day that they were going to announce it. And what they did is they had us all go into the same room, everybody.
Jesus.
And then they read the names out of the people who made it. And one of my teammates who had been training forever, she had trained for the 80 Olympics. And of course, the 80 Olympics were, that's when they boycotted, like the United States boycotted, we didn't go. And I can remember her she didn't make it. And she fell out of her chair and laid on the floor screaming in agony. And so at that moment, which could have been a moment of us going, I made it, we were just like, we're all, I was devastated. I was so devastated at that moment. And I said, man, there's just a better way to lead. Like, this is not the right way to do this. There's so many other ways this could have occurred. So at the same moment I was elated, I was also devastated, which is kind of an interesting, moment for all of us. I would say it's all of us. And then, from
Because
that
you
point
guys
on,
have a bond and you became very good close friends, and you think everybody has a shot, and all of a sudden reality hits in, and no, it's like handpicked, right? And you spot on when we have a people, all of them there. You have to contain that level of emotions. You can't be happy for yourself when you're seeing your friend hurting, right?
oh gosh, it was painful. It was so painful. And you know, that's the moment I said, you know, I'm going to be a better leader. When I become a coach, I'm going to be a better leader. When I become a coach, I'm going to be aware of these people, and I'm going to make sure I'm empathetic, right, to all people at all times. So it was a great lesson at that moment. But when we walked into the stadium in 1984, there was no, I mean, you talk to any of my teammates and you say, what was your greatest moment? And they're going to say, walking in the stadium in the United States of America, walking in that stadium and having 80,000 people on, you know, screaming USA, USA, USA. You can't, I mean, I'm talking about right now, and I'm getting chill bumps. I mean, this is how many years later, you know, I'm
Yeah.
still getting chill bumps about this because
Yeah.
it was such a phenomenal moment. It was so crazy that you're looking around and, you know, there's Michael Jordan over there, and there's Mary Lou Retton over there, and all these great, and you're part of it. You know, you're part of this whole contingent of phenomenal athletes who earn their way to this Olympic Games. And so it was a moment that you can never replicate that. You can never replicate that. Nothing in my life has ever been the same as that moment. But luckily I have the memory of it, so I can
That is
still
so
access it.
beautiful. Yes. I love that story, Sherry. Thank you for sharing. It's so, I just feel so like the way you said already, like I was there with you on the edge of my seat. And that is so beautiful. And I'm glad that you had a chance to experience. And then how did you guys play? What was I know you had a couple of really competitive, very strong teams playing against you guys. And then you guys end up winning, I believe, silver or no?
No. So let's kind of back up about team handball in the United States. It's still high school. It's still not played in any college. It's never been a sport that's been sponsored here. So, you know, you're looking at like, I can remember the first time I went overseas to play. So this is so funny. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm a good athlete, and I've been training really hard and all this stuff. And we walk into Denmark. I remember it was Denmark. It was the Danes, and we walk in. There's a woman, and she's smoking a cigarette in the gym, right? She's smoking a cigarette. She's got like 4 kids trailing her. And she's smoking a cigarette. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're just gonna crush these people, you know. And because they knew the sport and we didn't, they beat us like handily. Like they were doing all these tricks. I'm like, I don't know, this isn't fair. Look what they're doing to me. I don't know. And so we had a lot of learning to do to play a sport. Like I started playing at age 19. So I'm playing against people who played since they were 5 and 6. And they had, you know, multiple international competitions under their belt. And so we did not win a medal. We were one goal short of winning a medal. In fact, a USA team has never won a medal in team handball. In fact, there's not been a USA team competed. They hadn't even gotten in position to compete since 1996. So,
Wow.
so the fact that we were in the games and that we were so close to winning, and I will tell you, you know, this is my philosophy. I mean, it could be right or wrong, but you know, we didn't have a good coaching staff. I mean, our coaching staff was not good. We had a Czechoslovakian and a Russian who didn't understand women and didn't understand the culture of the United States. I still believe to this day, had we had a better coach, we would have won a medal, no doubt, probably a silver. I don't think we could have beaten the Yugoslavians who won that year, but I definitely believe that we could have won a medal. We were so close to in games, just one goal away from winning a medal. That's how close it was.
Wow. That must be also defeating in some sense, because I know how much effort and work you have to put to go and prepare, and how many years to practice, first of all, to be selected. And then when you're selected, to go beyond and above just to maintain that level of play that Olympics truly do demand and extract from everybody. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. And I'm seeing a couple of things here. Not much invested in female sports, and specifically not in handball, right?
Yeah,
Very
right.
similar story that I experienced back when I was even younger, you know, in times in late 80s, early 90s, which was unfortunate and sad. So very similar story many years later. But I just can't understand how much you guys sacrifice, and on the end of the day, you didn't even get paid or any financial support.
Nothing. But you know what? There's so many lessons and so many things that I learned from the experience. And one of the things that taught me some valuable, I can remember, you know, walking away, we were playing the first, the Junior World Championships. I'd only been playing like 3 months. I go to play the Junior World Championships, and we're getting annihilated, like annihilated. And it was like so easy. Like I just wanted to quit. Like I wanted to, it was so embarrassing. It was so hard. And then I said, how can I look at this differently so that I can find that ability to walk through this? How can I define a win differently? And this is something I did many, many years ago, and I've kept this with me all the time. It's what I taught my players when I coach basketball. It's now when I teach people now when I'm coaching CEOs and COOs and VPs and presidents of companies. And that's this: you have to define a win differently. So forget about the scoreboard, right? Number one, what's a win? Number one, did you give your best effort? Did you give your best effort? No matter what was going on, no matter if you were sick, no matter if you were hurt, no matter what, did you give your best effort? Number two, did you never quit? So, you're getting slaughtered. Are you still playing hard throughout that thing? And number three is, did you learn something from the experience? And what I discovered from that, Izabela, if I did those three things in all of my life, in all the challenges and all the adversities that I've met, guess what? I came out positive on the other side. So few people can give their best effort in adversity. So few people can never quit. Like they just walk off, they quit, they leave it behind, they can't sustain it. And so few people say, what can I bring? What lesson can I bring? What can I move forward from this to make me better? And really, when you do those three things, Izabela, when you can do those three things, enormous things will happen for you in your life, right? You have to have that resiliency, that persistence, that determination to drive yourself forward. And which I mean, I know your story and these things, but these are the things that so few people, I think that a lot of people, they quit before they get there.
Yes, they give up too easy, and they're not willing to put so much effort because it's too hard. And then also it requires a determination and consistency. And I love your journey, and the reason why I'm so thrilled and happy, besides that I'm absolutely always consider as my dear friend and colleague, but I also love to show people what is possible, how much what you learned actually you did apply, and then how you transition from handball playing professionally to actually coaching basketball and being coach for how many years did you coach?
I coached college basketball for 23 years. And so during that time, we won a national title and then went to 3 Elite Eights. And, and then, people are like, oh my gosh, it's so great. But I also had 5 years where I didn't have a winning record. And so sometimes people are like, oh, life was so easy for you and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's not. Like life is a challenge. And once we understand that life is challenging, and if we quit thinking it's just going to be this easy road, if we understand that life is going to present to you like these humongous challenges. And again, those three things drove me through that so that I could get to the other side and create another winning program. So, life is full of challenges. It's also full of opportunities. And if you can stay through the challenge, and if you can meet the challenge, the other side of that is always going to be amazing.
That is brilliant. And I love, again, how now you transform that into not only your passionate speaking, which you are phenomenal on the stage, and definitely great transformative leader that impacts so much youth and future generations of leaders. And of course, with more seasoned executives that are making choices and decisions as we speak, that are dealing with so much turmoil and change. But you understand very well philosophy of team dynamics, and very few people have that really strong sense of what that takes, what that is DNA, how that plays together, how that works together, and everything meaningful, everything that anybody win, it's based on the team and team dynamics that are there. So do you mind share a little bit of your words of wisdom around that? Because as we're seeing right now, we're at the all-time low in terms of team engagement and team performance. And I keep saying this is not the issue due to COVID and economy and because people are working remotely. Guys, don't use that as a buffer and as an excuse. We know what it is. So I want you to tell your perspective. So please bring it on, Coach Winn.
Well, I mean, that goes back to, there's a great quote by Zig Ziglar who said, some people say that motivation doesn't last. Neither does taking a bath. That's why we need to do it every day. Right?
Love it. Yes.
And so I love that because it's about, if you're a leader, you don't get a day off. If you're a leader, you have to figure out, how do I keep these people engaged? And that is from you. Am I listening? Am I valuing what they say? Am I bringing them into the conversation? Are they a part of the dynamics? Are they a part of our goal setting? You know, what if you want engagement, you have to create it. You don't get to take us, you don't get to go, I know it all. Here's what we're going to do. Everybody follow me. Let's go. That's exactly the wrong thing to do, right? Because nobody's going to follow you because they're brilliant. They're the people that you've hired are there for a reason. And so, engagement means, what are you doing? What are you asking of them? How are you empowering them? In what ways are they seeing the company as their company? It's like this, when people wear jerseys, like they go, it's my NFL team, like it's my, it's my Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's my, and they have the jerseys on and they're like, it's my team. Well, if your company's not saying that, if they're not walking around going, it's my company, then you're in the wrong space. You haven't empowered them enough to believe it's their, because they're going to say it's the company, right?
Yes,
it's your
yes.
company. It's the president, CEO. So you've got to be able to get people in that space. And part of that means that the leaders, and this is where I really work a lot, you got to get out of your ego. You got to put your ego in the back seat. You've got to believe in your team.
And right now, what do you see right now, if you don't mind sharing, Sherry, from your perspective? You're absolutely spot on. I just want to echo that. But I'm also seeing really interesting dynamics. I'm just curious, what is your perspective of what is either not happening or what should be happening more, or what, either way? I just wanted to kind of get a sense of in terms of what the leaders are missing the boat on right now during this time.
Well, I'm just working with the company right now, and they're like, we don't feel like our Zoom meetings are getting it done. I'm like, well, what are you doing in your Zoom meetings? Well, we've tried like the, happy hour week going, and I said, okay, well, that's great for like 2. So what else are you doing? Like, you can't just settle on one thing. I said, you've got to engage them. What are you doing? So I was just working at a company on a webinar last week, and we did a treasure hunt, right? So right at the desk, I say, okay, you got to pick up something on your table right now that is in alignment with the mission statement of your company. And they're all like, mission statement.
I was like, do we really remember? What is it? Where is it?
And so they're looking around their office. And I said, you can get anywhere off your office. Then they're running around trying to pick something up. And I'm like, so tell me why it's in alignment with your mission statement. And all that does is get people engaged. It brings them back into the forefront. They're being a part of it, and they're being a part of the solution. And I think what we do is we settle on something, like we get settled in, and we quit expanding. And you've got to always get your people out of the comfort zone. You have to always push them. You can't let them settle into a bubble. It's like if you're a coach, you don't say, okay, well, you know what? This year you averaged 5 points. That's enough, because next year you can just average 5 too. No, next year you better be averaging 10. You're a lot better than 5. What are you doing stuck at 5? And so I think we have to expand people. You've got to put nobody wants to get out of their comfort zone, Izabela. They're all like, ooh, like I like my bubble. This is really comfort. I don't want to get out here. But you can't allow that. If you're a leader, you can't allow people to sit in that.
I love what you just said, and I love that you are being innovative and creative. And because people, yes, they need to be reminded, but also they need to have a sense of belonging, right? If they don't have a sense of belonging, they will be like, what's the point? And just because remote work happening, people are also feeling that a lot of that process around being heard, being supported, it's also diminishing, and I really feel like that is no excuse, specifically during the current times and the current events. More than ever, actually, we need to make sure that people are doing okay and feel safe to share if they're not, and finding avenues, because as you know, cookie cutter model doesn't fit all. And that's why I feel like so many companies are still pushing for that and not doing enough as a result of it. And
that happens often,
yes.
Izabela, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No,
that happens often when people say to me, well, tell me what your program is. Like, what's your first step and second step and third step, for coaching? I go, oh, no. People, I don't have an A to Z, because not everybody starts at A. What if you start at F and I waste 3 weeks going from A to F? Why would we do that? Let's meet you where you're at. Let's coach you where you're at. And then we'll move you along. Let's figure out what you're not doing. Let's figure out what you are doing. And let's move you from that space. And so the cookie cutter method is all those people who go, I have a process that if you take my process and you do this process, you're all going to be better. I'm like, no, heck no, because you can't meet every single person, robotically. You've got to meet them where they're at, and you got to coach them where they're at. And that means that as a coach, you have to be innovative. You have to look at who they are. You got to figure out what they're self-sabotage, where they're self-sabotaging, where they're hanging up on limiting beliefs. What is it that they don't know that they think they do know? right? And
Yes.
so, and that's as a leader too. I mean, you always have to challenge your people to be a part of the process. And if you're not doing that, then you're not allowing them to be their best. And you have to hear them, because people feel valued when they feel heard.
And that you're spot on again, because I feel like even though people in a remote settings and everybody's home environment, it's not conducive for this length of work and working from home, and people are struggling. They're not everybody living by themselves. They have a family, they have all these different obligations, they have a different dynamics. And after a while, this is not just being just for a few days or a few weeks. We're having now over a year this a new environment, a new normal of working together. And I feel like one of the biggest things that I'm seeing, it's not anymore just working from home the issue. Organizations and CEOs that struggle with the growth, but they're also struggling with morale. And if they're not able to increase the morale of their people and not communicating frequently with them, it's not going to happen. So what is your take on what of those things that I just mentioned, and what are you seeing? Because I'm just curious. I know you are being in a driver's seat, and I wanted to, if you don't mind sharing, how did you deal with all the losses and some disappointments and low morale, and how did you build yourself back up? Because a lot of times people just don't have no idea how to do that.
You're right, Isabella. And it's not an easy equation. I think that people always want the easy button. How can I push the easy button and get to this better space? But that requires something called, developing good personal habits. It's like I always talk about the reserve. We have to, every day you have a cup that you need to fill up. You have a cup, you need to fill up the cup every day. And if you don't fill up the cup, you start the day with a half a cup or a quarter of a cup, and then something happens and some of that's taken out of your cup, and then something else out, and pretty soon you're empty. You have an empty cup. You can't do anything with an empty cup. And so many people are like, they don't start their day in filling up their cup. They don't do anything to fill up their cup. And it have to be an intention. You have to develop habits that fill up your cup. And so that when a tough time comes, that you still have enough reserve to deal with the tough times. But you can't say, oh, today I'm going to do this one thing that makes me feel better. No, you have to do it every day. You have to develop personal habits that fill your cup every day. Then guess what? When life happens, and it will, whether it's health or whether it's a relationship or whether you lose your job or whatever it is, if you filled up your cup, you will make it through it. But if your cup is depleted, and when so many people do nothing to help themselves every day, they have nothing, no skills that they do every day. They don't read something positive. They don't do a gratitude journal. They don't do meditation or prayer or self-reflect. They don't do anything, and they try to meet the day, and the day defeats them because they have nothing in their cup.
I love it. Again, that is such a phenomenal reminder. And how I look at Sherry, what I'm seeing, it's people are also having right now, as you said, fill their cup. For me, it's that emotional capacity. If the threshold is very low, no matter what you have, you will not, if you're not allowing to stretch yourself and really go further than you've never been before and grow with that, it's not going to happen. But I'm also seeing very low threshold of social capacity. So it's like, how can we now socially look at and help somebody else if we are not able to even manage and maintain our own? And that is the issue where I'm seeing such a huge disconnect. And we live in very individualistic culture to begin with. Now it's like all of a sudden we're showing more than ever, painfully obvious, that we codependent, that we're not meant to be independent to that level, and that we really need to figure out how now to operate and coexist. And I'm seeing a lot of domestic issues. I'm seeing a lot of other pain points. So it's just the magnitude of issues, I'm sure, as you've seen with your clients, that's just not any more typical engagements. They're just very, very different types of engagements, almost going back to that fundamental ways of being.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're all responsible for ourselves, but so many people don't know that. So many people don't understand that you're responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your joy. You're responsible for how you feel. We depend on other people to make us feel a certain way, and nobody can ever fill your cup the way you can fill it. I read a book a long time ago, and I wish I could remember the title, but it says, nobody can love you as much as you need to love yourself. And
Wow.
so right now, when people are out there and they're like, I'm isolated and this is tough and this is hard. Well, if you love yourself, guess what? You're not going to sit there and wait for somebody to come around to love you. You're going to figure out, what do I need that I need right now? Do I need to make contacts? Do I need to get on a Zoom call with a friend? Do I need to, mask up and go over to a friend's house? Do we need to go outdoors to do something? What's going to fill my cup? What do I need to do to love myself more so that I'm going to feel okay? But see, we have a whole group of people who think that they depend on somebody else to love them, depend on somebody else to make them feel better, depend on somebody else for their self-esteem. It's impossible. Like and so when I talk about to companies, I'm like, what are you doing to grow your people? I'm not talking about your skill for the company. I'm saying grow your people. Because when you're at this place right now that they're at, and these people are stressed out and they don't know how to deal with stress. Look, if you had grown that in your people, if you had taught them methods to use, if they haven't been doing it, they'd know it, they could fall back on it. If they had been doing it, then they're going to not coast, but they'll be able to deal with this. So it's really a process of really, what are you willing to do to love yourself so much that you're not going to allow anything to get you down?
That is very, very powerful. And that's again, as in some ways to so many people frightening, because it's like you unleashes your strength, your power and empowerment. And a lot of organizations don't exude or don't allow that to occur. Because it's much more difficult to manage. And as we know, change doesn't happen very often proactively. It's being proven over and over that we change as a species, which is like insanely high number, over 97%. When it's already too painful and it's already too hard, and because we absolutely have to, it's no other way. And that's very small percent, less than 3% of people proactively change and proactively willing to invest and transform. And you were mentioning some great quote from Zig Ziglar. And do you mind sharing some of your quotes? And I know you have an amazing book, and I know you have amazing wisdom there as well. But just anything that you want to share with us in terms of why is proactive change and proactive transformation pivotal right now? Why we cannot anymore allow to change from the pain? Because we know when it's changed from pain, what happens? It prolongs the process, right? It takes way longer. People are constantly fighting that, even though they know they had to, because they're afraid of change itself, but also uncertainty that brings. And what if they succeed, right?
Well, change is frightening for everybody, right? I mean, we're all afraid of change. Why? Because it's different. It's the unknown. It's the possibilities could be something could happen that's bad. But here's the deal. Like, I don't know of anybody who still looks the same way they did 20 years ago. I don't know of anybody who, hasn't changed in some way, shape, or fashion. We will change. We cannot fight. We're going to change. Your relationship changes, your job changes, you have friends probably that you had 15 years ago. You probably can't, you're like, where are they? I don't know where they are. They've changed. So, I mean, first of all, is to understand that change is going to happen. So why are you fighting it so hard? And it's that whole idea of, if you flow with the current, it's so much easier.
Yes. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you give in. It doesn't mean you surrender. It's just like, okay, so this is happening. Instead of pushing against it, how can I flow with it in such a way that, good things can happen? Because so many people, what you resist persists, right? That's an old one. If you resist it, it persists. Well, you're fighting against something, that's resistance.
Yes.
But when you flow with it, when you're like, okay, there's many people who flowed with this whole process. They said, okay, this is what it looks like. How can we make this process work for us? How can we stay in the flow and work with it versus against it? And these are philosophies. I don't know how else to change somebody's mindset other than you have to step into new ways of being. You have to step into new philosophies. You can't live an old philosophy and expect a new life.
That is so very true. If you have to be willing, again, to have a new perspective and come from different ways. And that's why I feel like people are struggling way more than they should be right now. And I mean, it's just so painful to watch, and it's evidence elsewhere. And I'm curious, you dealt with a lot of the rejection, with the failure, and with the success. And ironically, those are the top 3 fears right now that are being consistently showing up. Fear of rejection is number 1, because people are just so sensitive and they take it way too personal. They don't understand that that's the part of process in life. Second, obviously, fear actually of of failing, right? Because we are, as adults, not allowed to fail, and we cannot allow ourselves to see as a part of the trial and error because we're doing so many things that are new. And then fear of success. And do you mind sharing your philosophy, the Winn philosophy around that? Because I wanted to leave audience with something actionable that they can take, but also to hear from champion who actually been through all of it and came on the other side and consistently is being on that other side. So please.
Well, so I have three things that is the Winn philosophy, and so I really believe in these. And number one is W is widen the separator gap. And people will say, what do you mean by widen the separator gap? And I'm like, well, a lot of people just do the givens. So a given is you go to your job, that's a given. You go to your job on time, that's a given. You do the work you're supposed to do, that's a given. You do it in a satisfactory manner, that's a given, right? And so a lot of people do the givens, but they want what the separators have. They're mad, but because a separator does a thing that nobody else is willing to do. So if you're going to win, you have to think about, what am I willing to do that nobody else is willing to do? What does that look like? What am I willing to do? And that a lot of people freak out about that because they think it means working harder, and it doesn't really mean working harder. It just means working smarter, right? You know that, Izabela. The I stands for identify. I am as your power words. So the two most powerful words in the universe are the words I am, because whatever you say after those words becomes you. That becomes you. It becomes your world. And many people don't know this, and they don't understand the power of the words I am. They're not looking to what they repeat themselves hundreds of times, thousands of times throughout their lifetime. And so you have to believe in something before you see it. And if you say, I'm not smart enough, guess what? You're not. I'm not pretty enough, guess what? You'll never be. I'm not good enough. You'll never find the things that you want. You have to really attend to these powerful, powerful words. They're like magic. They're like the miracle workers, miracle words that change you. And then N means navigate success. So navigate success means, you can't just go, well, other people they got the lucky breaks. They got the right DNA. They were born at the right time in the right place with the right people. They got it all. Well, no, like you have to navigate it. Tom Brady was when they drafted him, he was drafted 199th, 199th. Like nobody thought that Tom Brady was going to make it except for Tom Brady. He navigated his success. He said, what do I need to do to get there? And how do I keep being on top? It wasn't because he was a phenomenal athlete. He didn't have all this special things. They were talking in his, I listened this morning, it was an old Oprah Winfrey Super Soul Sunday. And they were talking about his report. He's too thin. He doesn't have a good arm. He can't throw a good spiral. I mean, on and on and on was this report. Like, this is the guy who's won more Super Bowls than anybody else in history. He navigated success. So why are we sitting around going, well, if I would have only, like, I needed the better coach, or I needed a better position, or they knew they got that job, because stop it. You have to navigate it. You have to navigate it. So that's the Winn philosophy. I can speak, on stage for an hour about that, but that's really the succinct way to do it.
I love it, because that encompasses all the top 3 fears that also people are exuding and right now, and they're not even realizing. And as a result, they need to shift their mindset. But when you mentioned Tom Brady, I love that story, and navigating change, navigating the failure, navigating and picking yourself up, and then going forward and moving ahead, changing environment if it's needed to, whatever it is. Again, unless you try, you will never know what you're capable of.
Yeah. I mean, you can sit around, a lot of people happen. And, as long as you have a reason, you'll never find success. You have to be willing to let go of all reasons, let go of all excuses. You have to be willing to do that.
Wow, that is insanely powerful. Do you mind sharing just some of the pivotal moments in your life, but that really transform you and got you in this beautiful flow? I mean, I've been knowing you for years, and you're always in that flow, and it's just, you can't fake it. Specifically, a lot of people, when they say fake it till you make it, or whatever, all the crazy stuff, either you have that within you and that comes through, or doesn't. And I just love to see how still not only so much passion, but so much wisdom and so much knowledge is there. But you are spot on, because I hear also people giving advice and they're so off, or they're just reciting these famous authors from Jim Rohn to Zig Ziglar. But then I was like, where's this showing up in your own world? Where's the evidence of that you breathe and eat that? I mean, that you practice, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it's a in 19, oh, I don't know what year it was, 19, let's see, 96, 96, 97. I think 1996 is when I developed chronic pain. So at that point in my life, I couldn't sit, stand, or walk. I could not without intense pain. And I'm an athlete. Like I played with broken fingers. I played with a broken big toe. You know, I played with a broken nose. Like I played with that stuff. So I know what pain is. But this pain was it's intolerable. Like I couldn't function. I just couldn't function. And I went to 17 different medical professionals in a span of 2 years, and none of them knew what it was. So on my pathway to getting better, Izabela, I went through this thing called integrated manual therapy. And they said, you know, your body, mind, and spirit are all connected. You are not a separate being. All of you is connected. And of course, I was like, well, that's a bunch of hogwash. Like, just fix my body. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so stupid. I can't believe you were talking about that. It's so stupid. Well, in the process of you know, getting better, I discovered that, yeah, we you know, when you think about the three as one, we're a single unit. And if we're not attending to all those pieces, if we're not looking at all those pieces, if we're not working on all those pieces, we cannot be a solid one. And it was years. Like I'm a pretty stubborn person. I'm like, and I would go to this therapies, and they'd say something like, well, let's talk about this emotion. I go, nope. Not talking. I'm not talking about things that have ever hurt me. I'm not discussing that. I'm not going to be vulnerable. No, you know. And the therapist would go, you know, I'd come back again, and this was expensive. I mean, I'm talking, I would throw down $1,000, $1,500 every time I went, and I'd say, you know, fix my body, right? And they're like, well, you need to fix some other things too, like your, you know, your thought process, your connection to your spirituality. And I'd be like, no. Well, you know, 9 years of this. Now, I told you I was stubborn. 9 years of me fighting this to understand that to be a total being, you have to be a total being. It's all of you. And that process was lengthy. It was reading books. It was meeting myself in the mirror. Oh, so painful to meet myself in the mirror, man. It was forgiveness. It was reading, like I read thousands of books. I did a lot of reflection stuff. One of the things they asked me to do once was write down all the people I was angry at. Izabela, I could have filled a notebook.
Well,
like,
thank you
how
for
long
sharing
had to
that
do this?
vulnerably, but I can understand. But I can understand. Yes.
So this stuff it's you know, it's true. Like I'm not faking any of this, because this was a long journey for me. I'm not faking any of it. It was through a process, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't easy. But gosh, I'm glad I'm on the other side, right?
It was
I mean,
so
it was
worth
so
it
worth
because,
it.
yeah. And it shows in every ounce of your body and every cell of your body, shares in your eye contact and smile. And for everybody who will be not only listening to this, but also watching this video and recording that we're doing right now, you guys can just see, you can't fake that. And that's what I want to capture in everybody's memory for a moment. That is what's all about, because you're not in turmoil, you're not in conflicting thoughts, you're not just developing your body, and you're not working and exercising, exercising your mind and spirit and emotion. You are really looking yourself holistically, and as a result, you're building endurance and pushing yourself and able to really do impossible possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you for saying that. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you gotta, you know, and I think that part of that is, Izabela, is it's so hard to look in the mirror. I mean, it's so hard to see the things that you don't like about yourself, and then to turn that around and to love them. Like that's the hard part, because you have to love all of you. Like you can't not love any, like you can't go, well, I love all of me except for X, X, and X. You can't do that. It's got to be all of you. And this is a journey. And then I think, you know, for leaders who really take the journey of this, they're different. They don't have to fake it. They're empathetic. They're confident. They have assertive communication skills. They're able to navigate all the challenges in front of them. They have people that follow them because they want to, because they're like, they want to be in their space. and this isn't something you can just read from a book and go, got it. Because it's a journey.
And what I love about that too, because so many people are now reading and everybody's throwing all these different titles. And I said, knowledge is great. And it used to be knowledge is the power, but actually it's not. Knowledge is only power when you take action and apply it. Unless you apply it, if you don't take action, it doesn't matter. You can be the smartest person, but still broken and totally alienated and isolated of everything else around you. So that is the truth. And right now we're seeing a lot of people that are not able to cross even through at the table, across the screen, or that phone call, just to extend and be vulnerable, like you just shared your vulnerability. And thank you for doing that, because we all arrived after a certain point of hard work and nobody sees what it took. And I'm glad you said for some things took you 9 years, for something things took you a second, they were instantaneous. It's just no matter what it is, right? It's a blocking steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you just have to be willing. And I think that there is a never-ending process. Like, we have to be willing to say, I listen to these people, Abraham Hicks, and sometimes Abraham Hicks says, or used to say all the time, to remain joyfully incomplete. And that's the truth. Like, I don't think we're ever going to get it all done. There's a possibility to get it all done. I don't care how many books you read, how many retreats you go to, how many coaches that you have, how many mentors you've had. I don't care. There's still another step.
Yes.
But the thing is in the journey, can you do the journey like joyfully, even knowing that you might and probably will never get it all done?
That is such a beautiful realization. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I always thought about infinity and numbers as I was a little kid. I always wanted to know what was the last number, and just brought up something really pivotal here, because when they say it's infinite and never ending, that is the same thing. Why would have a never ending numbers, right? Because it's another minute, another second, another year, another century, whatever it is. It's another zero. It's always another number behind it. In a way, we're that kind of another number of version of ourselves that comes in different iteration of ourselves from the second ago, from a minute ago, whatever might be the scenario. And that is a beautiful way to put together. That doesn't mean we're not good enough, but we always can do something better, and we can always aim to expand and grow and push ourselves further, because that's where the magic is.
Oh, you said it. That's where the magic is. Right. And so many people live in the not good enough. And they're striving so hard to the next milestones that they'll feel good enough, but it's not the milestones. Like, it's not that, oh, we made this much money, or we got this, or now I drive this car, or I do this. It's not that. Like, and I'm not saying you can't have that. Like, you definitely, please have all those things, but don't depend on those things for what you're looking for inside of you, because those things will never give it to you. Right. And so they keep striving and striving. It's just never enough. And that's because they're not enough. Look, if you feel good enough about yourself, it doesn't mean that you stop striving. It doesn't, but you're not looking for something out of that. You're not looking for like, adoration from others or validation from others. You don't need that. You already have it. And that's the magic moment. That's the magic.
And that is so empowering too, because I am glad you are so much transforming organizations and future generations, because we generationally, and specifically in this environment, this culture in the United States, focus way too much of what is missing and what is not done right, and what is wrong, versus all the great stuff that were done there. And we need to shift this the script. So I'm glad that with your positivity and a mindset, you are not only exuding, but you are also teaching and coaching. It's helping to change that. So that we can be good enough and feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, when you're a leader, to me, a leader of leaders is the person who builds their team. They build their people. They help their people, become somebody new. And so you have to have your own values. You have to have your own integrity. You have to have your own set of, a mission, what your mission is. And it's not about, your mission's never about, how much money we can make and what the cars I drive and, how many employees I have. I mean, that's part of the process. That's not the mission. And so when your mission is to really serve others, when your mission is to really be in a position that you can help others, then those things will occur for you, but you're not like, that's not the winning point. That's not where the scoreboard ends, right? And because if you're living in that mindset, you're never going to be enough. It's never enough. You can have millions of dollars. It's never enough. You can have 5 cars, 3 condos. It's never enough. But when you live in the world of enough, when you live in that space, guess what? You have everything you want and you're able to give more. And then when you can give and you're not certain, like there's so many leaders who are searching for validation and searching for adoration, and they're pushing that they'll get some of it for some people, because those people that give it to them are looking for the same thing. Right?
Very true. Very, very true.
But you're not going to get the transformation. And that's what you want, transformation. I know that I made a difference. Let's say 20 years ago, when I coached a player, and they will call me or they will email me or they will Facebook me and say, Coach, man, I want you to know you changed my life. Like they don't remember the game or the number of points they average or I can't remember the score for any games ever. In fact, I don't even know if I remember the score of any game that I ever coached. Right? I don't know if I remember a score, but I do remember the people, and I remember the players, and I remember their struggles, and I remember who they became because of the struggle, and I remember who they like that part. Those pieces, those are what matter. And when you're a leader, the greatest thing you have is that if you help the people become better people, if you help your people do that, they go home and they make their family different, and they make their communities different.
Yeah.
And so your reach is so much bigger. And if all your focus is on money, if that's your only focus, look, you're not changing the world. But as a leader, you can change the world. Like you can change the community. You have the ability to do something so special that's not just about, your contribution is my money that I made. And I'm not, look, please, like if you're a billionaire, do it, man. If you're a millionaire, do it. If you got that, please do it. Don't hear me that I'm saying that's not important. I'm just saying, if you're doing it and you're not happy, you need to check it out.
Absolutely. And with somebody who is so accomplished like yourself and been so around the block many, many times and try so many different things professionally and on personal level, what is the next? What's the next on your bucket list, if you don't mind sharing? What will be something that you're looking forward to accomplish before obviously you are not able to either travel or do more of? So.
Oh man, Izabela, I just want to continue to I've really found my niche, and I love speaking on stage. So let's not say that. I love it. It's energizing. It's fun, but it's not as transformational as that leadership consulting where I get to meet with a coach. I mean, meet with somebody, a CEO, twice a month or some. I have a couple there once every week. You can see the transformation, and so I know that a difference is being made because they're making that difference to their people, right? So I just want to continue growing that. And when I get chances to speak on stage, even if it's virtually, like I have a gig on Friday, even if it's virtually, that's great. Any way that I can get messages out, I'm passionate about helping people. I'm passionate about serving people. And so any way that happens, and I'm writing another book called Winning Leadership, 7 Secrets to Employ Champions and Sell Superstars. So I'm writing that book. I've interviewed over 100 CEOs for that. It's phenomenal. Like one of the things I learned, which is so great, is like, being a CEO is no different than being a basketball coach. It's the same, it's the same mentality. It's the same things. They're talking about building teams and da-da-da. So, I'm writing that book and just continue to grow people. That's what I want to do. I want to help people grow.
That's fantastic. That is beautiful. Definitely motivation. And I cannot wait to see when your book comes out. Hopefully before end of this year.
I hope so.
Coach Winn, we got you. We're looking forward before end of the year. But what I also want to ask you, you already obviously have stellar legacy and stellar reputation. Do you mind just share what would you like at this point in your life to really be your legacy and to be remembered by?
The thing that's most important to me is how I remember myself. Because I can't control anybody else's viewpoint. So, at the end of this life, at the end of this place, I want to say, did you forgive yourself for everything? Did you forgive others for everything? Have you learned to offer love to people who don't love you? Have you learned to love yourself so much that it doesn't matter what anybody else says about you or think about you? Have you served people enough? Have you served enough people? Have you made a difference in other people's life in some way, shape, or form? Like, if I've done those things, I'm going to be pretty dang happy because that's a lifelong journey. Unconditional self-love is a lot of freaking work. It's a lot of work.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh, wow, that is so powerful. And I agree with you. We cannot be in charge of what others will think. It's important that we lived and we were fulfilled. That is so important. But I also know that you have great fans and a lot of supporters and people that, again, you're being a shining star in so many ways. And it's just very interesting to hear this and how connected you are to humanity and giving back and giving value. It's not about title and plaque on the building and somebody's name on the bench in the gorgeous national park, but it's more than anything, as you said, echoing and disseminating what you do and impacting people across the globe, right? Which you've been
Sure.
doing so very well. So
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to impact more people, but again, Izabela, if I don't, I'm still okay with that.
yeah,
Like learning to live in your space and just being happy every day. Like if I can achieve that, that's a pretty dang big deal. If I
yeah,
can meet the challenges in my life and not let the challenges wear me down, pretty big deal.
yes,
So do I love to speak on stages? Heck yeah. I've spoken to crowds as large as 14,000. That's a massive number. It's fun. It's energizing. But if that never happens again, I'm still okay with it. I'm still okay with just want to be able to say at the end of the day, did you do your best? Did you never give up? And did you learn something from the experience? That's what I want to be able to do.
wow, that is so powerful, Sherry. Sherry, this went very fast. I'm super honored again and thrilled that we could reconnect and do this and to have you on the Legacy Leader Show. Your stories, your thought process, I mean, it's just exceptional. So I just wanted to thank you on behalf of all the people that are watching and listening. Thank you for sharing so many great golden nuggets. And we hope to have you back very soon. And definitely when you have that book going, because we wanted to hear and get the scope before anybody else does.
Absolutely. Anytime, Izabela. I'm fond of you. I appreciate, who you are and what you've done. I appreciate what you've come through and the journeys that you've had and the changes that you're making in this world. And so, I appreciate you. And so, if I can support you in any way, if I can support anybody who's out there, like if you're listening, if you're out there and you're like, man, I just want to talk to this person, please do. You can find me on LinkedIn at Sherry Winn, right? Or the Winning Leadership Company. Or you can find me at website at www.thewinningleadershipcompany.com. Look, I'm always ready to engage in great conversations and I love having great conversations. So any way that I can support anybody, let me know because I honestly, I will do that. And so all I ask in return is that you rant and rave about me and you share me with other people. That's it.
Definitely. And I will definitely make sure that I have those websites down in a summary as well and everything we share. And then look forward sharing this great content across the social media with everyone. And thank you again for your time. Wish you a fantastic rest of the day. And please stay safe and warm. Okay.
Will do. Thank you, Izabela. You're awesome.
Thank you for listening to Legacy Leader Show. If you enjoyed the content and had a positive experience, then please leave us a positive rating. In addition, leave us a positive review whenever you are listening on whatever platform there might be. Make sure your friends and family also know about the benefit and value that we provide and what we have to offer. Cheers.